Chapter 31. Don't you have any feelings for her at all? You are listening at novelfull.audio. The cafeteria was buzzing today because the chef was doing a special. Mr. Mo and Zhou Jinchuan were around. Everyone was eating slower than usual, taking in the scene. Plenty of folks had witnessed the earlier drama, especially Bai Ruolin. She'd been glued to Sui, watching her land the job and snag praise from Mr. Mo. Furious, Bai Ruolin couldn't even choke down her water. She dumped her food and stormed off. Qin Yinfeng knew she was fuming, but he couldn't exactly comfort her with everyone watching. Seeing her leave without eating, he hurried after her. They found a quiet corner. That little sneak got away with it. Bai Ruolin shouted. Why didn't you get rid of her sooner, Qin? Now she has a job. Is she really going to stay here after New Year's? Qin Yinfeng bit his lip. He hadn't imagined Sui would end up working in the cafeteria, but he said firmly, don't sweat it. Even with a job, her family won't let her stay here alone. I promise I'll find a way to bring her back when the time comes. Bai Ruolin had heard promises like that a million times. They were always broken. She was out of patience. I don't want your promises. I want her gone, out of my life, now. Qin Yinfeng frowned. Ruolin, don't be ridiculous. You can't just make someone disappear. I know you're stressed, but what about me? Ever since Sui showed up, his life had been a mess. His co-workers looked down on him, and his workload was cut in half. If things kept going this way, he'd be finished. He had enough to worry about, and she wasn't being considerate at all. Every time they met, they argued about Sui. At first, Qin Yinfeng had patiently tried to calm her down, but after doing it again and again, his patience had worn thin. If you don't want to believe me, fine. Cool down. I've got stuff to do, so I'm leaving. Qin Yinfeng turned to leave, and Bai Ruolin panicked at his cold tone. She grabbed his arm. Don't go, Qin. You're all I have. I'm sorry, okay? I won't do it again. Please don't leave. It's our break. Just stay with me. We haven't had time alone like this in ages. Bai Ruolin always acted like she was better than everyone else, so she rarely said anything so vulnerable. Qin Yinfeng's ego swelled, and he softened. All right. As long as you don't cause trouble, I'll stay for a bit. Bai Ruolin bit her lip. She wasn't happy, but she didn't want to push him too far. She had worked too hard to get where she was. If she and Qin Yinfeng broke up now, she'd be the laughingstock of the whole unit. This man had to be hers. Thinking of this, Bai Ruolin surprised Qin Yinfeng by kissing him. He froze for a second. Bai Ruolin was usually so reserved. They had barely held hands, even after they were officially dating. This was the first time she had kissed him. He felt a rush of pride and pulled her closer for a long kiss. Ruolin, if you treat me right, I'll take care of you, I promise. Bai Ruolin pushed Qin Yinfeng away and casually asked, everyone says Sui is so pretty. Don't you feel anything for her? Qin Yinfeng hesitated, then shook his head. I don't like her. She looks like a fox. I still like you. No one can compare to you. He was lying, though, deep down, he felt a little guilty. Before, one had been flashy but a bit trashy, and the other had been pretty in a more simple way. Each had something going for her, but now Sui had totally outshined Bai Ruolin, inside and out. Anyone could see who was better now, and he wasn't blind. Still, no matter how beautiful Sui was, she was just a country girl with nothing to her name. If he got involved with her, her family wouldn't be able to help him at all. They'd just be a burden. They'd probably ask for a ton of money when they got married. Bai Ruolin was different. She was a city girl, her family was well off, and she had connections with political commissar Wang. She could help him get ahead. Any guy would know which choice made more sense. Sui landed a cafeteria job, with a monthly salary of 22 yuan, that was pretty good for someone new. Plus, having a steady job meant she wouldn't feel like she was drifting anymore. At least her mind was at ease, and right now, the cafeteria was only having her cook for Mr. Mo twice a day, which was easier than most jobs. Mr. Mo was old and ate very simple meals, just 2 dishes and a soup. one was either spicy Sichuan food or some kind of meat dish, and the other was just stir-fried vegetables. Even if Sui cooked it differently every day, it was still easy. It didn't keep her from looking after the kids, and it was even easier than selling tea. Eggs had been, Sui knew. Zhou Jinchuan had helped her get the job. She had been looking for a chance to thank him, but he seemed super busy lately. One day, Xiaojun had to go out of town and stopped by to talk to Sui. Sui, I won't be back for lunch today. Could you take Captain Zhou his food? You don't have to make anything special, just get a meat dish and a vegetable dish from the cafeteria. If you don't take it to him, he definitely won't eat when he's busy. Sui was surprised for a second. Then, she figured, she had to take food to Mr. Mo anyway, it wouldn't be a problem to take it to him too, so she agreed. With the perfect excuse to thank him, Sui made a small pot of braised pork before heading out. She filled a lunch box with it, planning to take it to Zhou Jinchuan when she cooked at noon. Consider it a thank you gift. Around lunchtime, Sui fixed Mr. Mo's food and warmed up the braised pork she had brought. Then she ordered a meat dish and a vegetable dish from the cafeteria, put them in her basket, and headed for the office. As soon as she got to the hallway outside Zhou Jinchuan's door, she ran into Political Commissar Wang, who was on his way to lunch. Sui had no choice but to smile and say hello. Political Commissar Wang stopped, looked in the basket, and smiled. That's a lot of food for Mr. Mo, isn't it? Can he even eat all of that? Oh, isn't this Captain Zhou's lunch box? Chapter 32. This woman has a really bad temper. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sui had to tell the truth. Xiaojuan's out today and asked me to bring Captain Zhou his lunch. I was headed this way anyway. Political Commissar Wang's eyes lit up. Ah, I see. Captain Zhou's eating good today. Sui played dumb. Captain Zhou just has Mr. Mo cook for him. He usually eats with everyone else from the big pot in the cafeteria. She quickly covered the food to keep him from peeking. Political Commissar Wang's face tightened. Speaking of coincidences, wasn't it lucky we ran into you at the cafeteria that day? We were taking Mr. Mo there and bumped into you. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known what to feed the old man. You're our lucky star. Sui blinked, pretending to be clueless. Yeah, total coincidence. Political Commissar Wang, if there's nothing else, I need to get Mr. Mo his food before it gets cold. Political Commissar Wang nodded and smiled. Go ahead. I'll have to sample your cooking again sometime. It was great last time. Sui smiled tightly. I'll be in the cafeteria from now on, so there'll be plenty of chances. She quickly left to deliver food to Mr. Mo. After that, she took the basket to Zhou Jinchuan's office. Captain Zhou, Xiaojun asked me to bring your lunch. Zhou Jinchuan nodded. I heard you outside. Just leave it. Sui agreed, took out the lunchbox, and set it up. Zhou Jinchuan noticed there was another lunchbox from home. It was different from what he normally ate. He asked, "What's that?" Sui opened it. "This is some braised pork I made. I brought some for you to try." Zhou Jinchuan stood up and walked over. Sitting down at the table, he saw the braised pork, a deep, rich red color swimming in gravy. It looked incredibly delicious, but then he remembered Political Commissar Wang's words in the corridor. He said, "Just bring food to Mr. Mo from now on. If Xiaojun isn't here, I'll just eat in the cafeteria. No need to cook for me alone, to avoid any misunderstandings. Especially since you're..." Sui suddenly felt angry for some reason. Without letting him finish, she snatched the box of braised pork away. Even the rice he'd just taken was put back in the container. She slammed the lid shut. Captain Zhou's right. I wasn't thinking. There won't be a next time. She put the lunchbox back in the basket and left. She wouldn't have even been delivering lunch if Xiaojun hadn't asked. She spent her own money buying meat on the black market, and now she was getting the wrong kind of attention. Better to just keep it all for herself. Zhou Jinchuan was stunned for a moment. Was the meat that close to his mouth really flying away? Watching her walk away in anger, he couldn't help but smile. He was worried that political commissar Wang would make trouble for her, and the cafeteria was full of gossips, but before he could explain, she ran off in a huff. She even took the braised pork out of his bowl. Zhou Jinchuan looked at the little bit of sauce left on his rice and shook his head, smiling. That woman had a temper. Back in the kitchen, mealtime was already over, everyone had already gone to rest. Sui made herself a bowl of rice, ready to enjoy the braised pork. Just as she started eating, Su Shaoqin and Zhang Tianhua came looking for her. "Did you deliver Mr. Mo's lunch?" "Oh my God, braised pork. Why does this taste so amazing?" Sui offered them her chopsticks. "Here, try the braised pork I made. How does it compare to the stuff in the canteen?" Su Shaoqin grabbed a piece without hesitation. "It's delicious. Way better than that old stuff in the cafeteria. You brought it from home?" Sui nodded. "Yeah, I made a big batch for the kids this morning, so I brought some." The three of them worked in the cafeteria together and were about the same age, so they hit it off. They quickly became friends. Su Shaoqin was especially warm and righteous. With her around, Sui wasn't bored anymore. Zhang Tianhua was quiet but hard-working. He was always the first to help with any heavy lifting. Now that they'd tasted the braised pork, they smiled and said, "I can't eat it all myself. Help me out." Su Shaoqin waved her chopsticks. "Don't mind if I do." They were enjoying their meal when Chef Wang came over, looking for trouble. He'd finally caught them. "Where'd the braised pork come from? Did you sneak it from the kitchen?" Su Shaoqin quickly stood up and explained. "No, Comrade Su brought it from home." Chef Wang didn't care about their explanation. He called Master Ma and the rest of the kitchen staff. "Master Ma, I saw them hiding here, secretly eating braised pork. What should we do?" Sui rolled her eyes. "Was this guy blind?" Master Ma asked. "Sui, where'd you get the braised pork?" Sui put down her chopsticks. "Chef Wang, did the canteen make braised pork today?" Chef Wang scoffed. "Of course. Where else would it come from?" Sui sneered. "Is there any braised pork left in the canteen? Bring it over and let's compare. See if it tastes the same." Chef Wang rolled his eyes. "Braised pork's the most popular thing we make. Of course there's none left. Don't try to weasel out of it." Sui looked at Master Ma. "Master Ma has the best palate. He tastes everything we serve. Let Master Ma try it. He'll know." Master Ma looked at the few pieces of braised pork left and then at Chef Wang. "No need to taste it. This isn't from our canteen. Chef Wang, look for yourself. The braised pork in our canteen isn't cut into pieces that big. And the color's different." Chef Wang took a look and immediately lowered his head, guilty. Then he looked up again. "So she cooked it in her own little pot. And used Mr. Mo's ingredients. That's against the rules. It's no different than stealing." Sui didn't want to argue. She grabbed a list from the table and handed it over. "Every morning when I get vegetables from the warehouse, I have the warehouse comrades sign it. Look for yourself. I didn't get any pork today. Mr. Mo's been eating fish for 2 days straight." Chapter 33 By Candy to Coax Her. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Master Ma took the order and checked it. It was exactly as Sui had said. She hadn't received a single piece of pork in the last 2 days. He threw the order at Chef Wang, annoyed. "It's right here in black and white. Take a good look. Wang Jiangwo, no matter how tough you are on the new hires, you have to draw the line somewhere. You can't just go around finding fault. As their supervisor, you should be setting an example. If I see something like this happen again, I'll have to report it to the commander." Chef Wang mumbled guiltily. "They should have told me. If they'd spoken up, it wouldn't have come to this. It was all a misunderstanding." Sui immediately called him out. "Chef Wang called us thieves the minute we walked in, and Xiao Qin started explaining right away. The problem was, no one was listening. Chef Wang started to say something, but Master Ma cut him off. Enough. Apologize to them right now. Chef Wang balked. Right now? In front of everyone, that he was the manager. If he apologized to the newbies publicly, how would he maintain any authority in the kitchen? He had his pride. Master Ma didn't let him off the hook. You called them thieves in front of everyone. You need to apologize properly, so everyone sees it. I don't want to see any more of this infighting. Reluctantly, Chef Wang gave in. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you today because I wasn't clear on the situation. It won't happen again. He bowed to the three of them. Okay, that's enough. Everyone, get back to work. Sui finished eating. She cleaned her station, grabbed her lunchbox, and headed home. On the way, Sui thought about what had happened. It wasn't dangerous, but if Master Ma hadn't been reasonable, she could have been in real trouble. Maybe Zhou Jinchuan had a point earlier. This was the 80s, and people could make a big deal out of anything. Better to be careful in the future. Better to do less than do more. Zhou Jinchuan was also doing some reflecting. He usually never even stopped for a sip of water when he was working. But that afternoon, he kept getting distracted while holding his tea. In the evening, Xia Xiaojun rushed back after traveling. He went straight to Zhou Jinchuan to report on the situation. After his report, he asked quietly, Captain Zhou, was it Sui who brought you lunch? Zhou Jinchuan grunted and frowned. Xiao Xia, don't ask her to deliver food next time. Xia Xiaojun, taken aback, said. Captain Zhou, did Sui say something? Zhou Jinchuan was about to chew him out when he hesitated and told Xia Xiaojun what had happened that day. What I said wasn't that bad, was it? Xia Xiaojun looked uncomfortable. Captain Zhou, Sui is a young woman. You have to be careful how you say things, even if it's for her own good. Think about it. She spent hours buying and stewing that meat, and she must have heated it up before bringing it over. That braised pork wasn't just meat, it was her thoughts and effort. And you didn't thank her, you just told her not to do it again. That's bound to sting. Zhou Jinchuan frowned. I didn't warn her, I just said it normally. Captain Zhou, you probably don't know what your normal voice sounds like. You always look serious when you're not smiling. We're used to it, but Sui hasn't been here long. Zhou Jinchuan waved him off. Forget it, go on. Xia Xiaojun turned to leave but was stopped again. Wait. You seem to know so much. What do you think I should do now? Well, Captain, it's simple. Why don't you buy her some treats to clear up the misunderstanding? Zhou Jinchuan considered it. Treats? Are you sure? Xia Xiaojun puffed out his chest. What girl doesn't like snacks? Buy her some goodies and some candy to enjoy. Zhou Jinchuan nodded, then stood up. I'm going out. Want me to drive you? No, I can go alone. Zhou Jinchuan rarely went shopping, but all the clerks at the town co-op knew him. When they saw him alone, they all gathered around, happy to help. They asked what he wanted, and Zhou Jinchuan just said he needed some snacks for a young girl. Everyone assumed he meant Yinuanyuan, since they knew about Zhou Jinchuan and his kids. Then they showed him cookies and candy. This cake is so soft, the little girl will love it. We just got some new fruit candies, and the white rabbit milk candies are always a hit with girls. Captain Zhou, which ones do you want? Zhou Jinchuan felt a little overwhelmed by all the attention. He just wanted to get it over with. He said, I'll take some of everything. The clerk quickly helped him. Zhou Jinchuan took several bags of candy and snacks, got in the car, and headed home. Yi Xiaowu was doing his homework, and Yinuanyuan was playing with her doll. Zhou Jinchuan looked around. Isn't Sui here? She went to the cafeteria. Zhou Jinchuan realized it was almost dinner time. He sat down patiently, checking Yi Xiaowu's homework while waiting for Sui to return. When Yi Xiaowu finished, he looked at Zhou Jinchuan, hesitant. Zhou Jinchuan glanced at him. What's up? If you have something to say, say it. Yi Xiaowu smiled sheepishly. Uncle Zhou, was the braised pork good? Su Yi started cooking it early in the morning. Zhou Jinchuan. Why yes, good. He couldn't say much in front of the child, Yi Xiaowu said happily, that's good. Su Yi's been wanting to thank you, but she hasn't had the chance. Have you been busy lately? Zhou Jinchuan realized that Su Yi had given him the braised pork because of the last interview in the cafeteria. He felt even more guilty. Chapter 34. Should I change my address to Aunt? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just as Zhou Jinchuan was starting to get irritated, he heard the front door swing open. Su Yi's bright voice called out, Xiao Wu, Nuan, I'm home. I bet you're starving, I'll get dinner going. She continued, mostly to herself, Mr. Mo kept me talking when I dropped off his food. That's what took me so long. Su Yi walked into the living room and found Zhou Jinchuan sitting there. What's he doing here? Yi Xiaowu jumped up, grinning. Uncle Zhou's been here forever. Just waiting for you to get back, sis. Su Yi glanced at the clock, surprised. What brings you here so early? I mean, Captain Zhou. Zhou Jinchuan nodded, gesturing toward a pile of snacks on the table, trying to find the right words. Su Yi gasped, Captain Zhou, what's with all the candy? Nuan's losing her baby teeth. I usually don't let her have it because she gets cavities so easily. Whatever Zhou Jinchuan had been about to say vanished from his mind. Well, if Nuan can't eat it, you can just keep it. Take your time. Don't you like candy? Do I look like a candy person to you? Su Yi had been planning to find a moment to talk to him about what happened at the cafeteria. Now he'd shown up on his own, bearing gifts. She wasn't about to turn anything down. She quickly thanked him and accepted the treats. She'd taken back the braised pork she'd given as a thank you earlier, intending to save it for his dinner to return the favor. Afraid he'd misunderstand, she asked tentatively, have you had dinner yet, Captain Zhou? Not yet. We're having cold noodles tonight. Okay. Su Yi hadn't bought any vegetables today, but luckily, some things in the garden were ready to pick. She'd made the noodles ahead of time, and had even chilled a big tub of boiled water. It was a simple matter to pour the cold water over the noodles, add shredded cucumber, tomato slices, bean sprouts, and cilantro, then toss it all with the sauce. Su Yi even grew the bean sprouts herself. Now, she only had to buy meat when she went out. She practically didn't have to spend a dime on vegetables. After making the noodles, Su Yi went to the wall in the yard to pick loofahs. The ones at the bottom were still a little small. After searching for a while, she finally found two big ones up top, but couldn't reach them even on tiptoe. Just as Su Yi was about to go back for a ladder, Zhou Jinchuan's voice came from behind her. Let me get that. The evening had darkened, and Su Yi jumped, startled to find him standing there, but she quickly recovered, pointing to the two loofahs. I want those too. Zhou Jinchuan nodded, reaching up and plucking them with ease. Anything else you want? I can help. Su Yi had only planned to pick the two loofahs for a loofah and egg soup. Hearing him offer, she felt awkward admitting she was out of vegetables. She asked him to pick some eggplants instead, planning to steam them, then douse them with garlic, soy sauce, and vinegar. She also picked 2 handfuls of okra, blanched them, and used the same sauce to make another quick dish. After helping her harvest, Zhou Jinchuan didn't seem in a hurry to leave, just glancing around. I haven't been here in a while. The yard's changed a lot. He was amazed at how a barren patch of land could be transformed into a thriving little garden in such a short time. After saying that, Zhou Jinchuan looked at her, his gaze intent. I might not have explained myself very well at lunch. I was worried, you being new to the cafeteria, that everyone would be watching your every move. And that political commissar Wang isn't someone you want to cross. You're just settling in here, so you have to watch yourself. But what I said probably sounded harsh. Su Yi met his gaze. Captain Zhou, it's okay. I ran into trouble as soon as I got back. Turns out you were right. I'll be more careful from now on. Zhou Jinchuan frowned. What trouble? Su Yi briefly explained the situation at the cafeteria. It's nothing, really, but I'll be more cautious. Zhou Jinchuan's eyes narrowed as he considered this. Chef Wang's performance during his last evaluation hadn't been great. It was clear Su Yi wouldn't have an easy time in that kitchen. Master Ma is the senior guy in the kitchen, and he's fair. If you run into any problems, talk to him, or come find me. Su Yi nodded. I will. Then she couldn't help but smile even in the dim light. Zhou Jinchuan noticed. What's so funny? Su Yi shook her head quickly. Nothing. Laughing at the guy who claims to be all about protocol and never pulls strings, but actually, Zhou Jinchuan cleared his throat, forcing himself to elaborate. You're responsible for Mr. Mo's meals now, and there can't be any mistakes. You need to be safe in the kitchen, which means ensuring Mr. Mo's safety as well. Captain Zhou's absolutely right. Whatever you say, the two stayed in the vegetable garden for the better part of an hour. Inside the house, Yi Xiaowu and Yi Nuanyuan were starving. Brother, I'm going to see what's taking Sister Su so long. Nuan, wait. Sister Su's talking to Uncle Zhou. Have some egg cake first. I don't want egg cake. I need to save room for noodles. Okay. Yi Xiaowu peeked outside and saw Uncle Zhou and Sister Su standing together. They were talking and laughing. Uncle Zhou always seemed so serious, but today he felt different. Even though he was just a kid, he knew what it meant to like someone. Could it be that Uncle Zhou liked Sister Su? If that was the case, it would be awesome. He wouldn't have to worry about Sister Su moving away someday. But in that case, would he and Nuan have to call her aunt? Aunt was fine. As long as she stayed, he'd call her mom if he had to. When Uncle Zhou and Aunt got married and had kids, he could help take care of them after school. The thought filled Yi Xiaowu with happiness. Yi Nuanyuan, standing beside him, was confused. Brother, why are you so happy when you're hungry? Yi Xiaowu grinned. Nuanyuan, no matter how many kids Uncle Zhou and Auntie have, don't worry. You'll always be the one your brother loves the most. Yi Nuanyuan. Was his brother delirious from hunger? He was talking crazy. During dinner, Su Yi noticed that something was up with Yi Xiaowu. He kept glancing back and forth between her and Zhou Jinchuan. What are you staring at, kid? Yi Xiaowu just giggled. Nothing. Chapter 35. Why would Zhou Jinchuan bring her back to Beijing? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mr. Mo's month-long stay at the army base was finally coming to an end, and he was headed back to D.C. He'd originally planned to stay no more than 2 weeks, but he'd fallen hard for the place, especially Su Yi's cooking, and greedily tacked on another 2 weeks. Before leaving, Mr. Mo called Su Yi to his office to tell her he was leaving. Then, he pulled a beautiful box from the drawer and handed it to her. This watch is a small token of my gratitude for all your hard work this month. Su Yi looked down and saw an antique watch from overseas. The dial was intricately gorgeous, and the band was studded with diamonds. Su Yi was taken aback. Oh no, Mr. Mo, I can't possibly accept something this expensive. Mr. Mo smiled. I bought this with my first savings when I was abroad, over 20 years ago. I wanted to give it to my mother when I returned, but I never had the chance. I've worn this watch all these years, and it's been a weight on my heart. Eating those familiar flavors again has lifted that weight. Please, accept this watch. Mr. Mo's eyes were already getting misty. Su Yi understood his feelings, but she didn't think she deserved such a lavish gift. She was getting paid to cook for him. Taking something like this on the side would just feel wrong, but Mr. Mo was even more stubborn than she was, and he immediately called Zhou Jinchuan in to talk her into it. Su Yi finally caved. Before leaving, Mr. Mo told Zhou Jinchuan, when you bring Su Yi back to D.C., you have to bring her by my place. Su Yi was confused. Why would Zhou Jinchuan be taking her back to D.C.? Seeing her confusion, Mr. Mo just smiled knowingly at the two of them. See you later. With Mr. Mo gone, Su Yi officially went back to work in the army kitchen. The workload was much heavier than just cooking for Mr. Mo. Luckily, Xiao Wu was on summer vacation and taking care of Yi Nuanyuan during the day. so Sui didn't have to worry as much. At noon, the kids came to the cafeteria to eat with her. Master Ma, impressed with Suyi's cooking, wanted to put her in charge of some of the main dishes. Chef Wang wasn't having it, and he and the other cooks protested. Master Ma asked him, annoyed, "Then what do you suggest Sui do?" Chef Wang thought for a moment. "Let her handle the cold dishes, along with Su Shaoqin and Zhang Tianhua. They all get along well, so they can work on those together." Sui couldn't believe her luck. "Okay, I'm in," she said immediately. Chef Wang thought the hot entrees were the heart of the cafeteria, and that the cold dishes were just a drop in the bucket, but he forgot it was summertime. The massive cooking pots made the kitchen feel like a furnace. Who wouldn't prefer a chilled side dish? Some of them didn't even require any cooking at all. Su Shaoqin and Zhang Tianhua had been annoyed at Chef Wang's sneaky arrangement, but after hearing Su Yi's explanation, their annoyance turned to excitement. "Wow, we totally scored." Zhang Tianhua was still a little worried. "But we barely have any cold cuts in our cafeteria, and nobody eats them. Won't we just be sidelined?" Sui gave him a reassuring look. "It's all about how you play it. Nobody used to eat them because they weren't good. If we step up our game, we might even beat out the hot dishes." Sui's fighting spirit rubbed off on the other two. "We're with you, Sui." "Yeah, we'll do whatever you say." Sui was actually the youngest of the three, but she'd already become their leader. When they'd first called her sister, Sui had been too caught up in the moment to correct them. Later, it had felt too late to say anything. Oh well, she figured, they were already used to it. Seeing that they were on board, Sui called a meeting without a moment's hesitation. She analyzed why the cafeteria's cold dishes had always been so uninspired. "Think about it. The dishes people here love the most are the ones with meat. They're all hungry guys, and they want something that fills them up." Su Shaoqin thought about it and agreed. "Everybody's got a big appetite. If the portions are the same, they're gonna pick the one that fills them up more, or they won't get enough. And our old cold dishes were so boring. The same old onions and tofu, cold shredded potatoes. Now that it's summer, we got cold cucumbers." Zhang Tianhua chimed in. "Right, you only eat that stuff when you're drinking. But no booze allowed here." Sui nodded. "It's summer, and I think everyone's been a little run down lately. That actually gives us an opportunity to make cold dishes a hit." Then, Sui laid out her plan. "Let's get a few more vegetarian dishes, fungus, cucumbers, tofu skin, yuba, stuff like that. Cut them up into pieces, then when it's time to plate, let people pick what they want and toss it all together. As long as the sauce is killer, it'll be good." The other two thought about Suyi's cooking skills and nodded. "Yeah, but you said you still wanted to get meat, right? What if we don't get any good meat?" Sui smiled. "We don't want the good meat. What if we ask Master Ma if we can get some pig heads, pig stomachs, duck gizzards, chicken feet, stuff like that?" Zhang Tianhua frowned. "Nobody's fighting over that stuff, but it's all the parts that aren't the actual meat. How could that be good?" Su Shaoqin was also a little worried. "We're changing so much at once. Will Chef Wang even let us?" Sui smiled. "Let's try it first, but not too much. I think Chef Wang is expecting us to mess up and make fools of ourselves. He'll definitely agree." Just as Sui had guessed, when she mentioned to Chef Wang that they wanted to change the dishes and get more ingredients, he agreed without a second thought. Master Ma was a little worried. "Sui, are you sure you want to do all this?" Chef Wang stoked the flames. "She's got this, Master Ma. You don't have to worry about her at all. It's great that young people have ideas. Aren't we supposed to encourage and support them?" Then Chef Wang turned to Sui and smiled. "Xiao Su, I can give you the stuff, but let's be real. Our cafeteria can't stand waste. Now that it's hot, what if nobody buys what you make? Then the food just gets tossed out." Sui met Chef Wang's smirk with a confident smile. "If nobody picks it, I'll cover the costs to the cafeteria. Alright, you got a deal. Chapter 36, Hot Sales at the Cold Storage Window. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On their first official day, Sui and the others were up before dawn, heading straight to the kitchen. They managed to get all the ingredients and spices they needed. Su Xiaoqin took charge of the vegetarian dishes, washing, soaking, cutting, and blanching everything. Zhang Tianhua was on meat duty, which took forever just to wash. Sui concentrated on making the marinade. Once Zhang Tianhua finished prepping the meat, he dumped it all into the big pot and got it boiling. Then, Sui turned her attention to the sauce: minced garlic, chili peppers, cilantro, pepper powder, soy sauce. The works. Sui's sauce was 50% fresh and flavorful, 30% spicy, and 20% sweet and sour, perfect for working up an appetite in the summer heat. Sui mixed some of the chopped veggies with the sauce and had the other two try it. One bite and their worries vanished. They couldn't wait for lunchtime. Hey, Sui, have you seen these braised meats? Sui wanted Zhang Tianhua to handle the braised dishes going forward, so she told him to pay close attention while she made them. Different cuts need different braising times. Let these cool off, then slice them thin or chop them up, like Xiaoqin's veggies. Arrange everything neatly, so it's easy to mix when people order. Got it. Once all the ingredients and sauces were prepped, Sui showed them how to assemble the dishes. When dinner rolled around, the cafeteria was swarming with people. Most of them didn't even notice the changes at the cold dish window in the corner. They just dove into the hot dish line. Seeing that no one was even looking their way, Su Xiaoqin started to panic. Sui, our window's too far away. What if no one sees us? Chef Wang, usually swamped at this hour, wandered over to check in. Hey, Xiao Su, so many folks in the cafeteria. You haven't sold out of those cold dishes already, have you? Sui just smirked. We didn't want to advertise too much. We were afraid we wouldn't have enough, and then there'd be a riot. Chef Wang just rolled his eyes, clearly unimpressed by Sui's audacity. He figured she'd be crying soon enough. Seeing that no one was coming, Chef Wang confidently returned to his post. Su Xiaoqin and Zhang Tianhua were sweating bullets with anxiety, but Sui just kept watching the door, as if waiting for someone. Sui, what are you looking at? Su Xiaoqin finally asked. Sui suddenly spotted a familiar face in the crowd. They're here. Get ready, she said happily. Just then, Sister Yao and Sister Jing showed up with a bunch of kids, and a whole crowd of women from the compound trailed behind them. Wow, so many cold dishes today. Even meat. This looks amazing, I'll take one. Me too. They started ordering before they even reached the counter. Sui laughed and quickly started explaining the options. Today we have vegetarian and meat dishes. Just tell us what you want more of. Su Xiaoqin and Zhang Tianhua perked up immediately. They enthusiastically described the dishes and started mixing them up. The commotion quickly caught the attention of people waiting in line at the other windows. Everyone looked over, curious. What's the new dish over there? Wasn't that the cold dish window before? Why are so many people there? Let's go check it out. This line's a mile long anyway. A few people wandered over and watched Su Xiaoqin and Zhang Tianhua mixing the dishes. The ingredients looked fresh and colorful, and the sauce looked amazing, and standing behind them was the girl who used to cook for Mr. Mo. Word was Mr. Mo kept pushing back his return to Beijing because he couldn't bear to leave her food. Now that Mr. Mo was gone, she'd been assigned to the cold dish window. If nothing else, they had to try it, for Mr. Mo's sake. So, they got in line. The line grew longer and longer, and the ingredients in the bowls dwindled. Su Xiaoqin started to worry. We should have made more. Now so many people are in line and they can't even get any. They're going to be mad and never come back. Sui smiled. Silly girl, nobody hates good food. The harder something is to get, the more people want it. Then, Sui yelled to the back of the line, only 5 orders of cold dishes left. If you're behind those 5, don't bother waiting. Come back tonight. that the 5 people in front practically jumped for joy, secretly ecstatic, like they just won the lottery. The others trudged away, disappointed. The lucky customers soon dispersed, settling into corners of the cafeteria. People around them glanced over enviously. That looks delicious. We should come here early tonight and line up for the cold dish window right away. Good idea. Let's get the cold dishes first, then grab some steamed buns. We can stuff the cold dishes in the buns. Man, my mouth's watering already. Inside, the 3 of them were already cleaning up. They were so busy in the back that they didn't see Chef Wang approaching. He deliberately waited, hoping to see them fail and to settle the score with Xiao Su. They had to pay up, but when he came over, he saw that they'd already cleared everything. Where are the dishes? What dishes? The ones in your bowls. Oh, they're all gone. Sui said it in the calmest voice, but Su Shaoqin and Zhang Tianhua were grinning from ear to ear. Chef Wang stared in disbelief, searching frantically. The bowls were empty. Not a single dish left. How is that possible? I didn't even see anyone come. Sui smiled. It happened so fast, it was all gone in a flash. But don't worry, Chef Wang, come early tonight. Then, the 3 of them left. Chef Wang stood there, speechless. For the next few days, the line at the cold dish window grew longer and longer. They had to prep more every day, but luckily, Su Shaoqin and Zhang Tianhua were getting better and faster. They were becoming real pros at mixing the dishes. Sui confidently showed them how to run the window and focused on developing new dishes in the kitchen. She planned to ask Master Ma if they could serve cold noodles at the main food window. No seasoning needed, just plain noodles rinsed in cold water. Cold noodles and cold dishes were a perfect combination. One day at noon, Sui was in the kitchen when Su Shaoqin, who was working the main dish window, suddenly ran over. Sui, we're running out of sauce. I'll make some and bring it right over, Sui promised. When Sui delivered the sauce to the window, she bumped into Qin Yunfeng and Bai Ruolin, who were waiting in line for food. It had been a while since they'd had a head-on confrontation, and Sui had almost forgotten about them, but it looked like the drama was back on. Chapter 37. Why does the relationship between these 2 people seem to be not going well? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sui had planned to ignore Qin Yunfeng and Bai Ruolin's sudden appearance, but they weren't about to let her. The moment Qin Yunfeng spotted Sui, he blurted out in surprise, Sui, what are you doing here? Sui rolled her eyes. I work in the cafeteria. Where else would I be? What, bummed you couldn't charm me during that interview? Qin Yunfeng sputtered, trying to explain. Bai Ruolin, clinging to his arm, cut him off. Honey, if Comrade Su isn't happy to see us, maybe we should go. But I finally made it here, Qin Yunfeng protested. Bai Ruolin pouted. Honestly, this cold food doesn't live up to the hype. I've suddenly lost my appetite. Su Shaoqin, who'd been waiting to serve them, was having none of it. She tossed her serving spoon into the bin and leaned out the window. Give me a break. You've been here every day this week. You're always first in line, and I don't see you skipping a single bite. Quit showing off. If you like the food, eat it. If not, move along and stop holding up the line. Qin Yunfeng bristled, ready to argue. How can you, as a comrade, be so rude? The people in line behind him quickly lost patience. Hey, are you gonna order, or just stand there jawing? If you're not hungry, step aside and let the rest of us eat. Yeah, you were here yesterday too. If it was so bad, why would you come back every single day? Don't ruin everyone else's lunch. Bai Ruolin blushed, mortified by the chorus of complaints. She'd heard from the girls in the art troupe that the cafeteria's cold dishes were amazing. Since it was hot and she'd lost her appetite, they'd all decided to try it out, and she had to admit, they were delicious. So she'd been coming with her friends ever since. Today, Qin Yunfeng had finally taken the initiative to see her, and she'd excitedly suggested they grab some cold dishes together. Of course, Sui had to be working the counter. She hadn't seen her all week. If she'd known Sui was here, she wouldn't have come if you paid her. Fuming, Bai Ruolin stamped her foot. Fine. I'm not eating it. Have it your way. Before she could finish, Qin Yunfeng, still clueless, held out his lunch box. Serve me some, that did it. Furious and no longer hungry, Bai Ruolin burst into tears and ran out of the cafeteria. Qin Yunfeng hesitated a moment, then took off after her, leaving Su Yi with a nagging feeling. These two are finally hooking up, but why does it feel so awkward? Shouldn't they be all lovey-dovey and heading for the altar? Bai Ruolin is supposed to be reborn at the end of the year. That's not too far off. What if they don't stay together, and she goes after Zhou Jinchuan? Su Yi's thoughts echoed in his head. Zhou Jinchuan, who'd just arrived in the kitchen to check on the kids, stopped dead in his tracks. It had been a while since he'd heard her mention them, and wow, what a bombshell. Bai Ruolin was going to be reborn. And would she still be after him after that? What was that all about? Even though he didn't fully understand, Zhou Jinchuan felt in his gut that Su Yi's words held some truth and that he needed to be careful. Lost in thought, Zhou Jinchuan was caught off guard when Su Yi snapped him out of it. Captain Zhou, are you here for lunch? Zhou Jinchuan nodded silently. Su Yi thought he seemed a little off, but she didn't dwell on it. She quickly pointed to where the kids were eating. Xiao Wu and Wan Wan are almost done. Want to try the cold dishes from our window? I'll go check on the kids first, Zhou Jinchuan said. As soon as he left, Su Xiaoqin snickered. Captain Zhou here today? Think he wants to try our cold dishes? Or is he here to see someone? Sui caught the suggestive look on her face and quickly corrected her. What are you talking about? He's here for the kids. She quickly filled an order and brought it to the table. Captain Zhou, should I grab you something from one of the other counters? Zhou Jinchuan glanced at the table. Su Yi had packed a ton of food for the kids. They probably couldn't finish it all. He shook his head. No, this is plenty. Su Yi grabbed a jar of kimchi from the side. I made this at home. Give it a try. Zhou Jinchuan nodded, not seeming in a hurry to eat. Did those two just give you a hard time? Su Yi chuckled and shook her head. Nah. They just came for food and ran off when they saw me. Zhou Jinchuan nodded slightly. Good. If they bother you again, let me know. Sure thing, Su Yi said politely. Ever since the braised pork incident, they'd become pretty comfortable around each other. He wasn't nearly as formal as he used to be. After lunch, the kids needed to get back. Su Yi told them, it's hot out. Xiao Wu, don't let your sister play outside. Go home and take a nap. I'll be back after I clean up here. Xiao Wu nodded. Zhou Jinchuan added, I'll see you tonight. After they left, Su Yi started cleaning up. By the time she was done, the dishes at the front counter were all gone. Su Xiaoqin, unable to contain her curiosity, immediately ran to the back to grill Su Yi. What was the deal with that couple earlier? Su Xiaoqin never pried about the specifics of Su Yi's broken engagement, but she'd heard the gossip around the compound. She didn't want to dredge up bad memories, so she'd always avoided the topic. She also didn't know what the couple looked like, so she hadn't realized at first that the two people at the counter were the ones who had wronged Su Yi. She only figured it out later, based on what she saw. Su Yi brushed it off. Yep, that's them. Oh man. Su Xiaoqin regretted it immediately. I guess I laid into them pretty good, huh? Oh well. There'll be other chances. Su Yi couldn't help but laugh. We're new here. Let's take it easy. Let's pack things up first. As she started to help, Su Xiaoqin and Zhang Tianhua both told her to stop. Go back and take care of the kids, Su Yi. We've got this. Su Yi smiled. Okay, I'm counting on you. She realized for the first time that the two of them seemed to have a thing for each other. Su Xiaoqin had just called him Tianhua, not wanting to intrude. She packed up her stuff and headed back to take care of the kids. Noon in summer was brutally hot. Su Yi didn't want to stay out in the sun for too long. She hurried home. As she walked towards her apartment building, she saw Sister Yao running towards her in a panic. Su Yi! Sister Yao yelled. Hurry, Something terrible has happened at your place. Chapter 38. The child's mother is back. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hearing there was trouble at home, Sui rushed back, panicked. What's going on? She asked. Get back there. Xiao Wu and Nuan mom snuck back, saying she wants to take Nuan. Sister Yao, call Captain Zhou for me. Sui took off toward home. She'd always been careful not to ask the kids about their mother, afraid of upsetting them. She'd only pieced together the story from bits and pieces Sister Yao and Sister Zheng had told her. Apparently, after the kids' dad died, she'd been distraught, crying and vowing to raise the kids no matter what, but then the pension money came through, and she took off with it, leaving Yi Xiaowu and Yi Nuanyuan behind in the compound. Everyone pretended their mother was just away on a trip and would be back, not wanting to hurt the children, so why the sudden reappearance after all this time? And why only Nuan? What was she up to? Sui burst through the door to find a crowd gathered outside her house. Sui, you're back. Someone shouted. The kids are heartbroken. We can't do anything. Never seen a mother like that. Gone for ages, then shows up out of nowhere. And immediately wants to snatch away her little girl. Sui pushed through the crowd and saw a woman in her 30s in the yard. She looked well off, dressed in a nice shirt and wearing a watch. She was holding a sobbing Yi Nuanyuan, ready to leave. Yi Xiaowu clung to the woman's leg, tears streaming down his face. Sui's heart lurched. Xiao Wu, Nuan. Hearing Sui, Yi Nuanyuan struggled to break free. Sister Su, I don't want to go. She cried, running to Sui. Yi Xiaowu bit the woman's leg, then grabbed a brick from the garden. If you want to take Nuanyuan, you'll have to kill me first. The woman slapped Yi Xiaowu. You should be happy for your sister that she is going to have a good life. Realizing how that sounded, she knelt, trying to soothe him. Mom promises she'll take good care of her. She won't want for anything. You're a Yi, and they don't care about you. There's nothing Mom can do. I have my reasons. Dazed by the slap, Yi Xiaowu saw only coldness in her eyes. She wasn't the mother he remembered, even though the adults had always said his mother was away. Aunt Lu and the other neighbors had let the truth slip. Nuanyuan didn't get it, but he did. All he knew was he couldn't live without Nuan. He squeezed the brick, ready to smash it over her head. Seeing trouble brewing, Sui quickly shoved Yi Nuanyuan into Sister Zheng's arms. Xiao Wu, no. As Yi Xiaowu raised his arm, Sui grabbed him. Sister Su, do you think I'm wrong too? Looking at Yi Xiaowu's rage, Sui's eyes welled up. Xiao Wu, she doesn't deserve to be a mother. But if you use that brick, your life will be over. She's not worth it. Yi Xiaowu trembled. If it's over, it's over. I won't let her take Nuanyuan. What about Nuan? If you mess up, she won't have anyone to protect her. Yi Xiaowu broke down, hugging Sui and sobbing. Sui took the chance to snatch the brick away. The woman, just now realizing what she was doing, screamed, he's trying to kill me. My own son is trying to kill his mother. Seeing the brick gone, she lunged at them, ready to slap him again. Sui shoved Yi Xiaowu behind her and kicked the woman. Then, she straddled her and began slapping her face. That's for Xiao Wu. What's it to you? The woman yelled. I don't care about my kids. Stay out of it. Sui's anger boiled over. Grabbing her hands, she pinched her chin to shut her up. She had experience with fighting, and this woman was no match for her. Seeing the woman treat Xiao Wu like this, Sui seemed to see her childhood. Both her past self and the original owner of this body had been unwanted and abused. These women were cut from the same cloth. Hatred burned in Sui's eyes. Just as she was about to lose it, familiar footsteps approached. Sui. Stop. Zhou Jinchuan pushed through the crowd and strode to Sui. He held out his hand. Come on. Sui looked at him, dazed. Captain Zhou. Zhou Jinchuan pulled her up. The woman, seeing Zhou Jinchuan, choked back her wails, terrified by his look. After Sui had taken Yi Xiaowu and Yi Nuanyuan to safety, Zhou Jinchuan said, "You ran off with the money, so why are you back now?" Wiping her tears, the woman said, "I had my reasons. But I missed my children. Now that I've found my feet and things are better, I want to take Nuanyuan. She's too young to be without her mother." The crowd erupted. "Give me a break. What reasons? If you missed them, why didn't you send them a dime? That's right. We haven't seen you for years. Don't treat us like fools." Zhou Jinchuan frowned. "If you don't want to tell the truth, we'll investigate." Chapter 39 Cursing Until Midnight. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When the woman saw Zhou Jinchuan reaching for his phone, she immediately came clean. After ditching them with the money, she'd found a new husband, she'd wanted another child with him, but couldn't get pregnant. Plus, he already had a son, so she figured she could take Yi Nuanyuan as a companion. As for Yi Xiaowu, she was out of luck if her husband didn't want him. Listening to his mother say such hurtful things in such a calm voice, Yi Xiaowu burst into tears again. Yi Nuanyuan, equally upset, cried alongside him, wiping away his tears. "Don't cry, brother," she sobbed. "Nuanyuan won't go anywhere." Sui, having cooled down from her initial anger, stood up and addressed the woman. "Since you're their mother, I understand wanting them back now that you're doing better. But Yi Xiaowu is your son too. If you want one, you take them both." Yi Xiaowu's heart leaped at Suyi's words. The woman, momentarily stunned, began to scheme, her eyes darting around. Seeing her hesitation, Sui continued, "And once you take them, you treat them right. They're the children of a fallen hero, remember? If they're mistreated, they can report it, and you'll face extra penalties. And don't even think about abandoning either one. That's illegal. We'll be checking in on them regularly." The woman's mouth twitched, as if she was abandoning some ideas. "Like I said, I can't exactly take them both right now. If it doesn't work, let Yi Xiaowu go back to the village and find the Yi family. His uncle and aunt are there." Sui scoffed. "You, their own mother, won't raise him, but you expect his aunt and uncle to? Even if they were willing, we still have debts to settle. Captain Zhou has been dipping into his own pocket to care for them, hiring someone to help. The living expenses alone are 30 yuan a month. You do the math. You owe us that money before you leave." Hearing this, Yi Xiaowu understood Suyi's plan and immediately felt a wave of relief. To avoid any disruption, Yi Xiaowu led Yi Nuanyuan back inside. Out of sight, out of mind. The woman panicked when Sui demanded money. She'd spent almost all her savings trying to find a better family. She definitely didn't have the money now, and her husband wouldn't agree to giving it away. Captain Zhou spent that money willingly. "I don't have anything to give you." "Then get lost and don't ever come back." Others chimed in, "Yeah, get out of here. We don't want you here. Go enjoy your good life." Zhou Jinchuan issued an ultimatum. "For Yi Wei's sake, either you divorce your husband and come back to the compound to take care of the kids, or you leave. Right now." Hearing this, the woman stared at Zhou Jinchuan in disbelief. "Captain Zhou, for Yi Wei's sake, please have mercy." Zhou Jinchuan narrowed his eyes. "If it weren't for Yi Wei, do you think you'd still be standing here talking to us politely?" The woman visibly trembled. Before arriving, she had secretly made inquiries. She knew the kids were left alone at home to nap. That was why she came at this time. She didn't expect the kids would start crying, waking up all the neighbors in their midday rest, and that's how it happened. Seeing that her plan had failed, she didn't dare to make trouble, so she had to go back and think of another way. Taking advantage of the chaos, she snuck away. The others couldn't help but curse her out, offer some comfort to Zhou Jinchuan and Sui, and then leave. Once everyone was gone, Zhou Jinchuan closed the door. He figured the three of them must be hugging and crying inside. Zhou Jinchuan was trying to think of how to comfort them, but when he entered the house, he found Sui eating mung bean soup with the two children. "Captain Zhou, want a bowl? It's freshly chilled. You need something sweet when you're feeling down." Zhou Jinchuan sighed in relief and readily agreed. Soon the four of them were sitting around the table, eating mung bean soup. Although the kids had stopped crying, they were still a little shaken. "Uncle Zhou, is she coming back?" Zhou Jinchuan reassured him. "No, I'll tell the guard to not let her in." To help the kids get over it, Sui spent the whole afternoon with them. Zhou Jinchuan also stayed home, working in his study. When it was time for dinner at the cafeteria, he came out and said, "I'll watch the kids, so you can go without worry." Sui nodded. "I'll be back when I'm done. We'll have dinner together tonight." "Good." By the time she returned from the cafeteria, the four of them had finished eating. Sui thought Zhou Jinchuan would probably leave, but then he said, "Nuanyuan's scared. Take her to bed first. I'll wait for Xiao Wu to fall asleep before leaving." "Okay." Sui felt much safer with a man around, but something still felt strange. She showered faster than ever. Luckily, Zhou Jinchuan realized the problem and deliberately hid in Yi Xiaowu's room while she was showering. Sui took Yi Nuanyuan to bed and breathed a sigh of relief. The bad day is finally over. "Look at little Nuanyuan, such a beautiful eye is swollen like a walnut, and she can't sleep well. Is this mother still human? Nuanyuan is like this. I don't know how Xiaowu is. Can he sleep?" She left, but she came back to make a scene. "I don't know how much damage it will cause to the child's heart. I get angry when I think about it. I should have removed her chin at that time." Next door, Zhou Jinchuan silently glanced at Yi Xiaowu, who had fallen asleep, but he was restless. His little hand kept grabbing his sleeve, and he was mumbling something. Luckily, he couldn't hear Su Yi's voice, or he would wake up. Zhou Jinchuan listened to the ranting next door, patting Xiao Wu's back. It wasn't until late in the night that the ranting subsided and Xiao Wu fell into a deep sleep. Zhou Jinchuan quietly got up and left. He locked the door from the outside, worried about the children. He hurried home to take a nap, returning at dawn to unlock the door. He also brought breakfast. Sui, who had been ranting for most of the night, woke up groggy. Hearing the sound outside, she walked out and saw that Zhou Jinchuan's dark circles were even worse than her own. "Captain Zhou, why are you here so early?" Zhou Jinchuan gave a wry smile. "I locked the door last night, so I came early. I brought breakfast. Eat it first." Chapter 40, Fighting for an Adopted Child. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Over breakfast, Zhou Jinchuan laid out the plan he'd cooked up the night before, wanting to put the kids at ease. "I'm looking into adopting Nuanyuan and Xiaowu. What do you think?" "What? Really?" Yi Xiaowu was floored. The idea of Zhou Jinchuan adopting him and Nuanyuan was amazing. This meant that woman could never try to snatch Nuanyuan again. Yi Nuanyuan didn't fully get it, but seeing her brother so happy, she knew it was a good thing. Suyi's first thought was, can a bachelor even adopt kids? Then she remembered it was the 80s, way before strict adoption laws, but would the Zhou family back in Beijing be cool with it? And with Zhou Jinchuan being a regiment head with a bright future, would the army sign off on it? Thinking out loud, Sui asked, "Won't that be complicated?" Zhou Jinchuan nodded. "Yeah, there'll be some hoops to jump through, but I believe in making things happen." Sui nodded, considering the angle. "What if they were adopted under my name? Would that be faster?" Zhou Jinchuan was taken aback. He hadn't realized how much she cared about the kids. He was willing to go to bat for his brother's kids, no question, but Sui and the children weren't related. Actually, Sui wasn't thinking that deep, just figuring out the easiest, quickest route. Besides, she was all alone in this world. Taking in 2 kids was like having family. When Yi Xiaowu and Yi Nuanyuan heard they could be adopted by Sui, they got even more hyped. Zhou Jinchuan just shook his head and chuckled, silently calling Xiaowu a little rascal. He'd been bending over backward for them, and Sui wins them over in 2 or 3 months. Turning back, Sui was practically glowing. "So, is it faster and easier, yes or no?" Zhou Jinchuan sighed. "Easier, but your address is still out in the boonies. You'd have to move here first, right?" Suyi's eyes widened. "Right, those folks back home wouldn't just roll over. If she could use this to finally ditch her rural address, that'd be a win in itself." How hard is it to get my address changed? It'll take some doing. Yi Xiaowu looked even more worried than Su Yi. Suddenly, he blurted out, Uncle Zhou, I heard Sister Yao telling Sister Su that if she got married in the city, she could get her address changed. Su Yi gave him a playful glare. You little snoop. Eavesdropping from that far away, but Yi Xiaowu had a point. If she got married, she'd have a legit reason to leave that family and never look back. Problem was, marriage wasn't on her radar. No husband, no marriage, I've been putting off meeting the two guys Sister Yao and Sister Zheng want to set me up with, Su Shaoqin swore her brother was a hottie, but he's deployed, maybe I should just check out the one Sister Yao mentioned, just in case, Ahem. Zhou Jinchuan cut in, marriage isn't the only way. You could get your address changed if you transferred to a different job. If you want to move, let's look into that. We can figure out the adoption stuff later. Su Yi was surprised. I'm just a temp in the cafeteria. Can I even do that? Zhou Jinchuan nodded seriously. Yes. Su Yi beamed. If that's for real, awesome. That she really didn't want to go back home. Looks like she'd have to make a trip before the spring festival and cut all ties with those people. After listening to them, Yi Xiaowu hesitated, not saying a word. Was marriage really such a headache? He just wanted to play matchmaker, but Uncle Zhou shut him down before he could even try. Did Uncle Zhou have a thing for Sister Su? Yi Xiaowu started to worry again. The news about Yi Xiaowu and Yi Nuanyuan's mom showing up and getting the boot spread like wildfire through the complex the next day. Most folks sided with the kids, disgusted by a mother who was so unfit. Lots of people praised Su Yi, saying she saved the day. Now everyone understood why the kids were so attached to Su Yi. She cared more about them than their own mom did, but there were always exceptions, like Aunt Lu, who lived close by. She'd lost her job because of her kids' squabble and got chewed out in public for not reporting it. She already resented Su Yi and found fault with everything she did. She'd been glued to the wall that day, soaking up the drama. After the crowd thinned and Zhou Jinchuan closed the door, she never saw him leave. Then, the next morning, she saw Zhou Jinchuan himself leaving the yard. Aunt Lu's blood boiled. She'd been right all along. This confirmed her suspicion. Zhou Jinchuan had it out for her because he was smitten with the fairy. Why else would he go to so much trouble over such a small thing? Having learned her lesson from the last time, Aunt Lu played it smart. She didn't blab it all over town. She only confided in a couple of her closest friends, saying she'd seen Zhou Jinchuan sneaking out of the yard early in the morning. She swore them to secrecy, of course, but everyone knew this was the juiciest gossip. Everyone started trading notes, piecing together the puzzle. Soon the rumor about Zhou Jinchuan and Su Yi secretly dating was all over the complex. Su Yi was practically the last to find out. Sister Yao and Sister Zheng cornered her, saying, "Girl, spill the tea. If you and Captain Zhou are a thing, awesome. We can stop worrying about all those other young guys." After all the compliments from the single men paled in comparison to Zhou Jinchuan. Su Yi was shocked. Me and Captain Zhou. What are you talking about? Seeing her reaction, they quickly filled her in on the dating rumors that were flying around. Su Yi took a deep breath. That's total BS. The kids were freaked out that day. I got Nuanyuan to sleep, and Captain Zhou saw that Xiaowu was still wired, so he stayed with him for a bit. But he definitely went back to his room, because he locked the door from the outside. That's why he had to come unlock it early the next morning.